thanks very much for having me here.
Yeah, of course.
I recognize that familiar face from the Porcupine Tree gigs.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so this came in the summer of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with Porcupine Tree, having the piezo split was really important. And this showed up when we were in Manchester. And
were you already a PRS player?
Yeah, I
that?
had a semi hollow body with them, and I was interested in getting, you know, solid. And yeah, I opened up the case and I just blew my mind just looking. I just stared at it for like an hour.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, so it's a custom 24 piezo. And on Steven's solo stuff, I'm really not utilizing the piezo much, but of course it's great to have it there as an option if we want to, you know, blend it in. But this has really become like my sort of number one, you know, workhorse guitar. I mean, you can get so many different sounds with it, and in
kind of the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't want to fly with a million guitars, you know, you kind of pick one or two that really get the job done. And so this has become, you know, this is basically used for like 80–90% of the show.
Oh wow, that much.
Yeah.
Do you have separate outputs for the piezo and the magnetic, or does it all come out the same way?
With Porcupine Tree I did. I would use both, and I had the piezo going to its own DI and you know, volume pedal to bring it in and out. Mm-hmm. But no, here I'm just using the main output, and if I, like I said, if I want to click it on for a moment, there's also a volume, you know, control there, and it'll just run through the whole path.
So you blend it in for some extra brightness?
Yeah, maybe an arpeggiated part or something.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really not utilizing it very much in this particular set at the moment.
Have the tuners been changed?
No, this is all stock as they sent it. I don't really modify things very much. I figure, you know, they're very good at what they do.
Probably doing a double take because they've probably changed the tuners in the following models.
Oh, okay, that could be.
The buttons don't look quite the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
so everything's stock. I haven't changed anything. It was just great out of the box. So.
What string gauge you use?
These are 10-46 Diodarios.
What Diodario models?
I think it's probably the NYXLs.
Figures.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you change gauge depending on the guitar, or is it mostly 1046?
I think everything is 1046 on this. You know, we're not doing anything in super low tunings. Everything's basically in standard for me anyways. So, yeah, 1046 is a nice gauge for me. I have in the past put 11s on certain guitars, but again, not necessary for this.
Right. Okay, so we start with the guitar, so where do we go next?
Yeah, so Steven and I talked about, you know, the possibility of entering the world of amp modeling for this tour, much to the chagrin of some, I'm sure. But, you know, honestly, with the way touring costs and everything are now, you know, you have to be mindful of what kind of production you're coming out with. And obviously some people will prioritize having stacks of amps and heads and all of that. But we wanted to see if we could come up with a really good hybrid of things. So we're using the Neural DSP Quad Cortex as our main brain, basically.
Right. What made you choose that particular one instead of all the other ones that are available?
I think honestly, mostly word of mouth. You know, just friends that we have that have had a lot of success with them.
So you didn't do a side-by-side comparison?
We didn't do a big shootout or anything like that. The bassist in Porcupine Tree, Nate Navarro, he used one on the tours that we did together, and yeah, several other people who have, you know, really enjoyed those. I mean, obviously they're all great, you know, and I'm sure once you get into the guts of all of them, you get them to do what you want. But I really like the layout of it. It's really intuitive, and you can go really deep with it. But it's once you get used to the sort of workflow and how things are, it's really powerful. And you know, they're obviously always updating things, and So it's been great. So the idea was to kind of set it up to see how much we could do in the box, so to speak. So Steven, he's gone complete, like he has no additional
I can see that's
pedals.
As naked a board as it goes.
He's just got the quad and a couple of these Dunlop, one for volume and one for expression, which I'm also
find
doing.
Particularly striking, since there are a lot of videos about the 2017 pedal board that was basically a spaceship, and
exactly.
I feel like adding one pedal to that board would like tip over the whole thing towards the quad Cortex.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it kind of makes sense that that would be the next evolutionary step.
Yeah, and honestly, he's he's given me a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the more obscure sounds, let's say. So I wanted to see what was possible to do all in the quad Cortex, and then I built my board around it with additional things that just aren't really possible within that unit. More glitchy type sounds, more synth-like things, which I know they have some of those, I think, in the plugin realm. They just haven't made it to the unit itself yet. And then just some kind of wild card stuff, because I still like the tactile ability to just turn on a little delay pedal and do a sweep or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, this so far is about the smallest I could get it down to. I may reassess things after our tour break to see if it can get any smaller, but I think this is a pretty nice setup. And
so far, have you been happy with it?
Yeah, very happy.
Is there any of these that you're using more than the other ones?
Well, I kick on this Cali 76 quite a bit.
Right.
The compressor.
For any
compression
clean sound, I suppose.
Well, also just for leads, I mean, I just love the way it interacts with the front end of the quad Cortex. I feel like it just kind of opens it up. Same thing with this EP booster.
Is it always on?
I pretty much just leave it on.
Right.
And I've gone back and forth because obviously it does something to the sound. It could more of a low end thing.
Right.
And some of the highs get shaved off, and I've gone back and forth of like, should I leave it on or not? I just leave it on. I just like what it does. Again, maybe I'll reassess later, but I like that pedal quite a bit. The Freak Out gets a pretty fair amount of use. It's just a super cool textural thing that you can bring in and out, and the ability to change the harmonics of the feedback is really interesting. The fuzz pedal pretty much only gets used for that solo, and then I've got this Source Audio Artifact lo-fi elements.
That's a fun one, yeah.
Yeah. So again, now we get into the sort of stranger sounds, between that or the Maris Autobit Junior, which is doing some glitchy stutter effects. I've got an MXR carbon copy that I use in a few spots.
Right.
It's a beautiful delay and just completely different sound. And then the Eventide H90, of course, is another workhorse thing, and some Synthier patches in there. And then finally this
the Chroma Console.
Hologram Chroma Console, which is very cool. Again, I'm bringing that in for specialized moments.
Right.
And I'm not doing anything crazy. I mean, we could talk about everything that's on it, but it's all just running into the front end of the quad Cortex. I'm not using the effects loop. And I'm doing a stereo rig where the mono, let's say left side, is going out to this KSR PA50 power amp, which has an EL34 tube in it. It's a really great unit.
Right.
And that's feeding the Bad Cat 412. So, we are rocking cabs on stage and they're at full volume. So we haven't gone completely into the direct realm. It was important that we still wanted to move some air.
Right.
But in the case of my rig going stereo, I do have the right side going to a DI with impulse response. And the blend of the two actually sounds really great.
So you hear both sides in your monitors, I guess?
Yeah, because we're on in-ears.
Right.
So I've got a nice spread.
And one of the sides behind you on the cab.
Yeah, which is more, I feel like I feel it more than I actually hear it, you know? Yeah, because there's a lot of sound design elements. I wanted to try the stereo thing because with the quad Cortex, you can do really creative stuff with offsetting the delay times, you know? So if you've got like a reverse delay, you could have it, you know, completely different time in the left and the right, and you kind of get this, you know, interesting thing happening.
Because you don't already have enough elements on stage as is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you mentioned not using the loops on the quad Cortex.
Yeah.
So basically you have to switch the presets on the Cortex and switch every other pedal as well?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure there's a way to, at least with some of these pedals via MIDI, probably take care of that, but not the analog pedals. With Porcupine Tree, I had a gig rig, G3, which is an amazing unit, and I would have loved to have used it, but again, you know, space being an issue, that would take up a whole tier in itself.
Right.
So the way I'm bringing in the other analog pedals, let's say, there's enough time for me to, you know, I've mapped it out so I know where to turn them on and not have to do too much of a tap dance.
Okay.
Because, like I said, most of it is coming from the quad Cortex, and then, you know, a particular moment I might have, you know, a sufficient amount of time to turn on fuzz pedal or the analog compressor or something like that.
Yeah, probably gives you the an element of control as well. That's
and it keeps you in the gig so that everything isn't like completely automatic all the time. You know? What we're looking at now is part of a song called Objects Outlive Us, and in this bank I've got 8 presets per bank.
Okay.
And they're all named based on, you know, whatever the effect is or the section, that kind of thing. And I line them up in order of the song so I don't have to think about it. And then when it's time to advance to the next song or the next section, because this song in particular has 3 banks of presets because it's about 22 minutes.
Right.
And, you know, they're, like I said, they're really specific, you know, so one sound might just be a, you know, that, like but it's with an echoplex, and then I've got to bend down and sweep it and then, you know, go to some heavy riff kind of thing.
Hell of a gig.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely, it's the perfect gig for somebody like myself who's really, you know, interested in the playing part of it, but the sonic aspect as well, which is definitely a huge part of, you know, what makes all of it work for all of us.
How long would you say you spent programming the presets for that gig?
That's a good question. Yeah, probably a couple weeks, I guess.
Right.
You know, I mean,
like diving really deep into each part of each song.
Because once you get it took me a little bit of time, like I said, to just learn the workflow of the unit. Right. And then once that got going, you can then start to sort of copy paste, you know, a sort of basic template once you know what amp you're using and you get a sense of the effects and that. But every song, you know, really specific, really different. Like, okay, what's the delay time there? A lot of soloing out parts, and just referencing, you know, what's there on the stems, and then trying to match it as closely as possible, which is fun. It becomes like a sort of puzzle science project thing, and once you nail it, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, especially you're not showing it to the class, but to audiences around the world.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose the set list doesn't change from date to date, right?
It does a bit, actually.
Okay.
I mean, we've got
apart from the bulk of the overview, of course.
Most of the show is you know, pretty set, but there is I don't know, 6 to 8 songs maybe that kind of rotate, depending.
That's not nothing.
Yeah. So I mean that's all obviously. You have to kind of keep that under your fingers. And, when we're doing these multi-night stays, like we did 4 nights in London or 3 nights in Paris, that's where there, 3 or 4 songs might change per night, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because some people in the audience are going to
all 3.
2 or 3 shows.
Yeah, and it keeps it fresh for us as well, of course.
So let's go to the individual pedals that you're using.
Sure.
The Dunlops, one of them is volume, the other one is
expression.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it changes function depending on what the...
Depending on the patch, yeah.
Right.
I've mostly set up my expression pedal either for wah-wah, because there's some really nice wahs in there, and like whammy effects.
Of course.
I haven't gotten into using it for like delay times or anything like that.
Because you would mostly change patches for that, I guess.
Exactly. I've already kind of pre-programmed that stuff. So yeah, one of the amazing things also, I should say about the Quad Cortex is that once you've set up your sort of chain of everything that's going to be in that particular song, the amount of detail of like, patch 1 delay, 50% mix or something, and then hitting button 2, let's call it, might dial that back 25% and change the delay time. This is just, the sort of amount of micro detail that you can get into is really significant for a gig like this.
And you will get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we hear some sounds from the Quad Cortex itself?
The first sound I make in the show is pretty silly. It does require I turn on this eventide though.
Okay.
Which is basically just this strange reverse glitch sound. And then I bring in this kind of grainy thing. Sort of a alien transmission.
That's beautiful.
Ambient thing.
So the volume is beginning of the signal chain.
Yes, yeah, I have it first.
It doesn't cut the details of delays and reverb.
I've experimented with having volume pedals in different, parts of the chain, but for this it made sense to keep it at the top.
Okay.
If we just kind of rifle through some of these, this sort of what you'd call glissando guitar, this kind of, if you see old footage of David Gilmour in Pompeii or whatever. That kind of stuff. We've got some tremolo. But like right off the back of that will be some quick little. But then I've got to quickly grab this and get. Just I'm using a Digitech Freakout a lot in this show as well. More glitchy stuff. About this point, everybody's saying, does this guy actually play anything real? Or is it all just noise?
I didn't say anything.
But yeah, so, this is where you get to like the Echoplex thing, where the part is literally just. But then you've got to get out of there quickly to go. that kind of thing. So the ability to kind of quickly, you know, navigate these things, and then, you know, maybe back to something like this. But these are parts taken in isolation. They are what they are, but in the context of what it's doing in the band, you know, these are significant moments that kind of add to the whole sonic picture.
Impressive, yeah.
You know, big sort of octave. And then to, you know, something like that. So yeah, so again, you know, it's just the ability to be able to get to all of these different textures and
how about the obvious solo that's been stuck in my head for a few months now?
From Objects.
Yeah, the buzz around.
Yeah. So of course in the studio, I had a fuzz pedal, and I think I played through the Cornford Hellcat, and you know, pretty minimal. But to recreate that here, I've got a little. I did want to have a dedicated fuzz pedal as opposed to using in the box thing.
Right.
So I've got this little ZVEX Fuzzolo, it's called. And using a little bit of flange here on the Eventide H90, and whatever else I've got going on in the Cortex. Yeah, and if you hear the stereo spread, you know, that's where you get this sort of kind of spatial ping pong effect happening.
Very impressive. Yeah, one more proof that I can gather all the gear I need. It's still gonna sound better when you play it.
Well, it'll sound like me, and you'll sound like you, and
yeah,
that's the point.
That's a nicer way of putting it.
It's the point of any of this stuff, though. You know, I mean, it's the amount of gear available now is amazing. It certainly makes my life really fun, but you eventually have to commit to something, and you have to be able to play whatever the parts are. You know, so these are ultimately all tools to hopefully get you to where you need to go. Yeah, in a different gig, I'd be happy to plug straight into a Fender or a Marshall and just do it. But this isn't that kind of gig. So
what kind of simulated amps did you go for?
Yeah. So
are there many of us, or did you stick around like 2-3 models?
2. Yeah, I wanted to keep it as true to what it would be like to actually have an amp on stage.
Right.
I didn't want to go crazy and say like, oh, I have a Marshall on this section, and then I'll go to this, and you know, it's just not. Most people wouldn't actually do that. You know, if we were doing this gig with amps on stage, we would each have one head each, and that would be it, and there would probably be a multi-channel amp. Yeah, I didn't go crazy looking for, you know, the best, quote unquote, you know, model that somebody has created in their studio.
Did you model your own?
I didn't. I modeled a few overdrive pedals that I wanted to, you know, have, and it does a pretty convincing job, I have to say. But no, I went with stock amps, you know, just 2 different models, one for like ultra clean and one that's doing most of the other
stuff. Which ones did you pick?
I have I'm using the Roland Jazz Chorus model for the ultra clean.
Figures, yeah.
And then the model that they have that's based on the Victory Kraken.
Right.
Which obviously does the high gain stuff really well, but also cleans up really nice. Or I should say, like, that sort of edge of breakup clean. Right. You know, that still has some grit to it.
And the lineage with Bad Cat is still there then?
Of course, yeah. Steven's been with Bad Cat, you know, for forever, at least 20 years, I think.
Right.
And this is actually my first time playing through a Bad Cat cab, but yeah, happy to have that, you know, continue along with PRS, the sort of lineage of Steven's music.
Can we talk about the other guitars you're using?
Sure.
I don't see the Les Paul.
No,
I'm very disappointed.
Trust me, I am too. I just I didn't want to. Well, a couple things. I wanted to keep the guitar count low, as I said earlier, and honestly, it wouldn't have had a whole lot of function in this show, other than, you know, that particular solo. I would love to play it on that guitar because that's what I recorded it with. But I'm also just a little, you know, traveling with it is scary, and it is a beautiful instrument. But, you know, going with the PRS, it's doing a great job. And I'm using this Strandberg.
Certainly not a Les Paul.
This is definitely not a Les Paul. This is it's got a very long name, the Salin Tremolo NX6, I believe.
Okay.
And yeah, I really love this guitar. I mean, the Strandberg stuff is just super fun, first of all, because it's so portable.
Right.
And I mean, you can just pick it up and bring it anywhere, which makes it really ideal for travel.
Right.
It's always going to fit in an overhead bin, but you know, it's the perfect sort of like hotel room companion guitar. And
I was going to ask, do you keep it with your?
I take it with me everywhere, pretty much.
Whereas this obviously travels.
They travel in the truck. Yeah. But yeah, I really like this model a lot. I love the way their tremolos react. They're very sensitive, and you know, you can kind of get that kind of bar slur thing really easily. You know, Jeff Beck is my hero,
right?
And I have a couple of solos in the show that, you know, I'm wanting to evoke a bit of that spirit, and
you can get your back on.
Yeah, exactly, and I can get there, you know, with this, which is awesome. So I use this for the second song in the new record when we play it live, the title track, the overview.
The overview, yeah.
And a couple of other things in the show as well. But yeah, I've been playing some Strandberg since I think summer 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So I've got a few, and yeah, they're awesome. They're a great company to work with, and you know, also just very forward thinking. They're always working on new designs, and they're very receptive, I think, to the community of players that play their guitars and wanting to, you know, just keep making them better. So and they're not tied down in a way to tradition. I mean, they've created their own thing.
They don't have to reissue every single thing they ever made. Yeah.
Exactly. So you know, that's, I think, a big advantage there, and certainly a lot more people are playing them these days. This is a LSL Bad Bone 290, boutique builder out of California. Beautiful guitar. I had this on Porcupine Tree as well, actually, for one of the drop C sections of a song called Anesthetize.
Right.
And yeah, I use this for one or two songs in the show. Again, I just wanted to have something different as a wild card. But this is a great piece. It's got a little push-pull.
To split the humbucker, I suppose?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, really nice.
Beautiful blonde.
And then this Takamine acoustic. Don't ask me the model, I'm not sure. But
well, from the headstock, it looks like an oldie, but
yeah, but you know, love their acoustics.
From the strings, I can tell it's in Nashville tuning.
It is, exactly. Yeah, so it's got that nice sort of splang. So there's a couple of songs in the set that require this particular instrument.
What's your signal chain for the acoustic?
I was going to say it's going to a DI, but I think we have it maybe going through like a Boss equalizer pedal, because as our tech Tonto has showed us, there's a you know, there's this almost like a sort of oral exciter thing that you can get happening with it, just with a little, you know, bump in the EQ or whatever. So
nice.
Just a little extra shimmer.
Thanks very much for taking the time.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for coming by.